Hey, this is Steve, Nashville, Tennessee, and you're listening to Count It Off.
All right, welcome to Count It Off, your fresh new window into the world of music. I'm Jeff Dayton here in Nashville, Tennessee, and I love bringing you guys fascinating guests, and we've got a great one today. I tell you what, it keeps getting better and better here on Count It Off. Today we've got Tommy Barbarella, who is a veteran of Prince and the New Power Generation. That band blew my mind when I first saw them on TV. I think it was Letterman. And I just was knocked out with the quality of the band and the power of the players in the band. I remember Michael Bland being just a groove machine. And the fun thing is that Tommy and I have gotten to know each other, play a little bit over the years. And so we're going to have fun talking to him. We're going to ask for some stories about various people. We're going to do a lightning round and have some fun, share some of his music and the many things that he's done. So looking forward to doing that. And the way we all start the show is say, kick it off, Marcia.
Welcome to Count It Off with your host, Jeff Dayton, where we explore the world of music through the eyes of some fascinating guests. So get tuned up and let's count it off.
How about that? Hello, Tommy Barbarella.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. This is so cool to get together like this, and I really appreciate you taking time to do all this. We've got a lot of common history together, and I wanted to, because we're both from the Twin Cities. One of the things that I love finding out from people before we get too far into this, and I got to see if I can find this thing, we're going to start off by just talking about your career a little bit, and I wrote up a bio to start with, if you don't mind me bragging on you here, and it says, Tommy Barbarella is a renowned keyboardist, composer, arranger, and orchestrator, best known for his groundbreaking work with Prince and the New Power Generation during the early 1990s. A master of sonic texture and music versatility, Barbarella helped define the lush, funk-infused sound of the NPG era, contributing to some of Prince's most adventurous and memorable tracks. With his distinctive blend of classical training and experimental edge, he quickly became a trusted collaborator both on stage and in the studio. Beyond his tenure with Prince, Barbarella has established himself as a first-call session musician and music director, lending his talents to a wide range of artists across pop, rock, funk, and jazz. His work as an arranger and orchestrator reflects a deep musicality and a sharp creative instinct. So, Tommy, hey, tell us about when the music bug first bit you, you know, the moment that you know that you're just destined to be a musician and how you got going. Can you talk to us about that?
I don't know. I was pretty young. In my family, we all were required to take 2 years of piano lessons, starting at like age of 9 or something. So I did that like all my siblings did. And I don't know, a few years into it, it was pretty clear that I didn't want to stop after 2 years like siblings did. But I kept going. And I remember my teacher telling my mom, it's like, he's got the touch. I can't teach him anymore. We need to send him to a better teacher.
Wow.
And, but I remember, going to weddings and just hanging out by the band and just watching the band the whole time. And that was when I was like, this is what I want to do. Not to say that the wedding band was the coolest thing I'd ever seen, but to me, it was like, these were the only musicians I'd seen up close, in person. So I was fascinated by it. And yeah, it was, by the time I was middle school age, it was everything. I was practicing like 10 hours a day. That's all I wanted to do. And pretty much what I did through high school with very little social life and a lot of shedding.
Well, it sure paid off, didn't it? I mean, I know that I could have practiced and should have practiced more. I'm lucky I'm this far without that. But I remember a moment when I was walking down a road in Florida and there was a house, kind of a long driveway, but I could see that there was a band playing up on the porch, and I was still in my early teens, and I remember focusing in on the guitar player from a distance there. He was playing chords up the neck. It wasn't just like, the cowboy chords. And I went, wow, I want to do that too. I want to learn with those. So I remember going home and trying to figure out how to play chords farther up the neck. And I realized that an F chord was just a D chord up 3 frets, that kind of thing. And I was like, wow, I'm learning something here. Of course, I had a terrible guitar, but it was still a breaking moment for me. When did you get into pro music? When did you start playing for money?
Not really till late high school, towards the end of high school. Started doing some gigs. And then when I went off to college, a buddy of mine, I was so into it, but my parents didn't really support. They didn't support a musical education. I wanted to go to Berkeley and, I wanted to do a thing, but they were like, yeah, music's a nice hobby, son, but you'll never make a living at it. And I always tell people that was the greatest advice I ever got, because it forced me to really just do it all on my own. I didn't have the luxury of that support, and I had to find my own way. Yeah, so that after that freshman year in college, a buddy of mine called me and said, playing with this band, we're playing at Felty's. And I'm like, Felty's? That's like the coolest club in town. Mid-'80s, it was a club that was kind of a classy place. They had a house band, like every place had a house band back then.
I remember.
But it was like, a really mixed crowd. It was black, white. It was, and the music was more in that funk thing. Not really, it wasn't like a top 40 club. It was more of a urban but classy kind of joint. So we were doing like Al Jarreau kind of things, Jeffrey Osborne.
Yeah.
It was that era of the 80s R&B. And so that was my first gig at that club. And yeah, it was amazing. It was that scene in Minneapolis at that time. I don't know when you left, but this was right after Purple Rain. So every musician in the country was moving to Minneapolis to be a part of what they thought was the scene that was in that movie. And the thing was, it wasn't actually that far off. It was such a vibrant music scene here. It was so many clubs, and every place had live music, and every place you'd play for a week at a club, or you'd have a house band at a place like the Felty's. But after the gig, there'd be parties, which would be jam sessions, and it was just music. And so that was a wonderful time to get into the scene. And yeah, it was really fun. I remember that summer I playing with this band. I went to see this band, and some of the guys from the time showed up, and it was like, I met Jimmy Jam, and I met all these people, and it was like, oh my God, these are the people in the movie. And I was just flipping out. Like,
that's great.
I'm moving to Minneapolis, and I was in St. Paul. But
big move.
Continued through college, but now I was playing in a band every night, and somehow I stumbled through college, getting really bad grades, but doing the music thing, like I said, on my own, making my way.
Isn't that the way too? And we have to pay our dues, and we live crowded conditions, and I remember one band I was in, we had four guys in the Pontiac, the 64 Bonneville, with a broken back window with plastic taped over it in the middle of winter, driving to Minot with trolling a trailer. Yeah. And the band dressing room was the parking lot in winter. It just was not glamorous. That's fun. The 5 night a week. The 5 night a week house gig is a thing of the past. I really did enjoy that, and we had some really good house gigs. I remember that was a lot of fun. So what happened next for you? I mean, I eventually want to get to talking about you and Prince, and how did that develop? Was it the connection with Jimmy Jam?
No, so I played in bands. That first band was really great for me. We started writing originals. Cities 97 was new station at the time. They started playing our stuff, so it was like I'm a sophomore in college, not majoring in music, not a music school, but had the best gig in town, and the cool new radio station was playing my song. And it was like, this is awesome.
Oh,
and so that was that band. Bounced around a few things for a couple of years while still going to school, and then put together a band out on Lake Minnetonka, house gig again. Geraldine Steele was one of the vocalists singing with us, and after that run that summer, she said, you should come play with my family's band. We need a keyboard player. And that's how I ended up playing with the Steels. This was shortly after, they did Gospel at Colonus on Broadway. And I think it was before Javita had the Calling You Grammy-nominated song. But, they were the real deal. And I started playing with them. And we were playing the Fine Line, which was a new club at the time, but one weekend a month. But it was packed every time we played. And Prince started coming down to hear Steels, and Sonny Thompson was playing with them also. So Sonny was a friend of Prince's from childhood. So he'd come down to see Steels and Sonny playing with them. And at that time, I was playing with them, and I was kind of working my stage look quite a bit. I was full on mid-'80s hair, makeup, just pretty wild, pretty crazy looking. So he noticed me, definitely. And then, I could play. So I started hearing from people that Prince had his eye on me and he liked me, whatever. And nothing happened for a few months. Seemed like a long time. Then he had did a record for Margaret Cox called MC Flash, and they were starting to rehearse out there at Paisley Park for an opening slot for his European tour. Steve Cherawan was the keyboard player. It was mostly Mambo's Combo who backing her. He didn't want to do it. So they called me and like, do you want to do this gig? Steve dropped out, and I'm like, hell yeah. So next day I'm out there at Paisley Park rehearsing with that. I don't know at what point, but it was very early on in one of those first few days of rehearsals. I mean, I met Prince the very first day, and very shortly after that, he asked Sonny and Michael and I to stay after rehearsal to quote unquote help him with a song or two. So we go over to Studio B and set up all my shit over there, and we all set up to record, and we start showing us the song, and like, okay, so we start recording the song, and that song was Diamonds and Pearls.
Oh my gosh.
And,
yeah.
That was the first thing I did with him, and everything I did in that session ended up on the record, and that was the start of that band, that New Power Generation. And and later that night he called us back, recorded Live for Love. I remember Sheila E. was sitting in the booth, and even though I just met Prince, somehow the fact that Sheila was there made me even more nervous. Because she was a big star at the time still, and it was pretty heady and pretty fast, and then I did the run over the UK with him. Shelved that project, but that band became the backing band for Mavis Staples, so ended up playing behind Mavis Staples on that tour opening for him, which was super fun, and my first time out of the country, first time playing arenas and all that.
Wow, what a leap.
So yeah, it was, and I was probably 23, 24.
You're kidding.
So then 6 months later, in December, I got the call asking if I wanted to be in his band.
How long did you have to think about
that? Not too long.
Yeah, no kidding.
The urgency was that he was booked to play Rock in Rio January, a month later, and that was my first gig with Prince, was Rio de Janeiro, soccer stadium, 200,000 people. I don't remember anything.
Yeah. Matt Fink has been on the show, Dr. Fink, and he talked about how incessantly Prince wanted to rehearse. Is that what you ran into?
It was incredible. We rehearsed all the time. By the time you see, at the time, that's just what it was. That was the job. And it was like, I'm getting paid to play music all day long. This is awesome. You're young, you don't have other responsibilities, and it was wonderful. But yeah, it was intense. The pressure was crazy. So I replaced Matt in that new band. Rosie Gaines was the other keyboard player, and she was, mostly a singer. And she played a little bit. So she'd play like an organ part or a whirly part, great pocket. But she wasn't like playing multiple parts. So when Matt played with Lisa, both of them very good keyboardists, they were both playing multiple parts. But when I played with Rosie, it was pretty much I had to pick up all those parts.
Yeah.
But Rosie's playing one part. I'm playing like 10 parts. And this is before samples, before any kind of tracks or anything. But it was incredible. The way what he got out of you is like, as soon as I'd get my 3 or 4 parts down, and he'd give me another part. And I know Jimmy Jam has talked about this too. And it's like, then you got to dance, and then you got to look cool, and then you got to do another part. And if you say, well, I can't do it, and he's like, wrong answer, But then by the end, it's like playing like 12 keyboard parts on a song, and it's choreography between all the different keyboards, the pedals. You're holding this note with this pedal, jumping to another one, hitting some steps, trying to look cool. Yeah, it was incredible.
That's funny. And I guess, though, the fact that there were no tracks, you guys weren't locked to syncing anything, that just spoke even more highly to me about the quality of that band, because I've been really kind of binge watching the rehearsals on the show for the 1991 Special Olympics at the Metrodome. And
that's amazing. And I watched that too. It's like, oh yeah, remember that. I remember being so nervous. We hadn't even toured yet. You got to realize that band, we had just rehearsed a lot. And I think we might have done some one-off dates, TV shows. We might have done Arsenio at that point, or maybe that was coming up later that year. But we hadn't toured yet, so that was so early on in that band,
wow,
which makes it even more incredible because it only got better after that.
Yeah, I didn't know that, but I know that they showed in the rehearsal clips. They showed you guys from the stage at sound check, and then flip back to the Paisley Park rehearsal room and then back to the stage. And you got the idea that he really did work this thing and work this thing and work this thing. And all the choreography in I'm a Star and Push, that medley. And I was really, so I didn't realize that I was watching like the nexus of the band, you know, that you guys were just getting ready to pop. And I tell you, when I first saw you on Late Night, and I don't remember what show it was, but I know you've been on them all, that I was so impressed with that band right off the get-go, you know, and Michael's groove, Michael Bland, the drummer. And I've gotten to talk to him a little bit. He's a super cool guy. I've never gotten the honor of working with him, but man, what a presence he is.
Yeah, he is nothing like Michael. I mean, you know, the fill in Diamonds and Pearls, that just epic drum fill going into the bridge. Yeah, I remember Prince saying when Michael got in the band, sound check or something, you know, we do these long jams and he'd like break it down to just kick drum 4 on the floor. And then he'd say, Michael got more in his little toe than all my other drummers put together. Because it was just so powerful.
I remember Matt telling me about, you know, Prince kind of getting him at first, where he got to one of the early rehearsals and Prince said, did you work on the keyboard parts on this song? And Matt was like, no, actually, I didn't realize I was supposed to work on that. And Prince says, it's okay. There was no keys on that song anyway. Walked away laughing, you know, just kind of, did he prank you like that a little bit now and then?
Oh yeah, there was a lot of stuff, but you know, what's interesting is, I didn't know all his songs. You know, usually you get a gig with an artist and you quickly study their book, right? You learn all their back catalog, so you're prepared when they call a tune, right? With him, it wasn't like that. He didn't care that he started from scratch with every song. So he'd come over, show me, play this. Like, okay. And then we'd start playing the groove for a while. And then I realized, oh, we're playing Raspberry Beret. It was like, I didn't said anything about that, but he'd like to rebuild these songs from the ground up with the band to make it fresh, keep it fresh. And you know, so a lot of the way I played some of those older tunes with him was not the right way. It was just the way he showed me how to play it that day. So then now I've done some stuff with Matt, and it's like, well, how did you play this? And it's like, wow, that's not what we played at all. And it didn't really matter. And he just liked rebuilding it because it was just another step of the creative process, keeping it fresh. And you know, and the other thing. So what Michael Bland realized talking to Fink was that until the New Power Generation, he would do the records. You know, people would come in and play parts on the record, but he never made whole records with the band from start to finish like we did. Those first few records, we basically did the basic tracks as a band. He would do overdubs, do vocals later, but you know, so it was like at the time we didn't even realize that, but it was like pretty special. You know, it's like these parts that I would come up with in the session, in the tracking session for the basic tracks. That's what went on the record. And if he didn't like it, he would replace it. But he just wanted to see what you would bring to the table, and realized that we were his first band that really did that. He didn't work like that with the other bands. So, you know, all these things like since he's passed, realized stuff like that where it's like, wow, that was really special, you know. When he died, it was just like, you know, you go through all these emotions and then you realize something that has the gravity that it never had. Like, holy shit, he gave me a name, you know. He gave me the name Barbarella. Like, wow, what an honor, you know.
I remember you telling me one time, you said, my mom says, that's not your name. Why does he call you that?
Yeah. She saw a picture in the paper. She's like, Tommy, I see a picture in the paper, Prince, and I think looks like you, but it's not your name.
Oh, that's so funny.
Like, oh, no.
Yeah. Let's listen to a Tommy Barbarella track called Old Soul Cafe from Greasy Meal.
In the air,
there's the funk, all right. Man, that's great, Tommy. Talk to us about that record. That is really cool.
Yeah, so Greasy Meal was kind of the next thing I did after I run with Prince. It started during the last year. I was still playing with Prince. Just a fun band to do on Sunday nights. Sundays were the only days we didn't rehearse with Prince. So I played, Michael was in another band next door called Men Who Eat Out, but Greasy Meal was every Sunday night at the Caboose, 96 to 99, I think. It started out as just something to do for fun. We just played 70s covers, but it grew and grew and turned into this juggernaut where we ended up selling out the Caboose, holds 1,000 people every single Sunday night for three years.
Wow.
It was incredible. It was such a scene, and it was so fun. We started writing originals. It was kind of a Minneapolis super group at the time. Some good players, and we did a few records. It was the most fun I've ever had in my life, and it was growing, and it just felt like we were gonna go places. And Prince, when he disbanded the New Power Generation, a couple months later, he called me to be in the next band. And I actually said, no, I want to see this Greasy Meal thing through, see what we can do. And he's like, cool. But yeah, I actually turned him down.
Wow.
To keep playing with him. And I don't regret it. That was a blast, that band.
You said the most fun you've ever had, even more than 200,000 people in Rio?
Yeah, the irony was, I wanted to, we'd always play big crowds with Prince, and then it was really fun to play in a small club with some guys where there was way less pressure. I didn't have to trigger any samples or do crazy shit. I was just playing organic keyboards, playing Rhodes, organ, clavinet. It's like, I just want to do that. And then the irony was that it blew up and turned into this big thing, which some pressure, but it was just like, it's hard to explain. I have to send you a video of that time. It was just wall to wall people, like every single week.
Wow.
And
I remember playing the Caboose with Kevin Odegaard back in the 70s, and it was a cool room. I mean, it was epic, 10 years, 12, 15 years before you got there.
It's a good times. I mean, I was just blessed to be able to do that, even after the Prince thing.
Yeah. Well, you haven't lost any momentum that I can tell, but go ahead and say what you wanted to add.
Well, it just kept going. Then it was during those years I started working at Ashton Spencer Music House, doing the jingle thing, and that was became a steady day job, if you will, where I got to do, music for TV commercials back in the golden era of jingle houses, where everything was still union work and the budgets were big. And within the first couple of years I started writing jingles, I was doing Super Bowl spots, like big major stuff. And I don't know, there were the first many years of my career, it was like everything fell into place. Like everything I touched worked out. Like, okay, I guess I'll do this next. This is awesome.
That is awesome.
Sure, I'll write Super Bowl spots.
Yeah.
Then I got cocky, and it's like I started turning down gigs. Like I got asked to do the Janet Jackson tour, and I was like, nah, when I was with Prince, I was out front with him. I was really featured. I don't really want to be behind all those dancers. I'll pass. And probably not the best career move at the time, but then I ended up over in Italy, working for this music director for this big Italian pop star, which was also very rewarding, very fun. I was trying to find a song I did with her you could play too. But yeah, I wrote songs for her, produced Mr. MD. That was also a great time. I loved those years in Italy.
Yeah. Well,
5-7 years over there.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the commercials you do, because you produced the music for probably my favorite ever Super Bowl commercial, and it happens to be on your demo reel here. I'm just going to play. You guys can't see it, but the one. It's famous. And
this man right here is my great-grandfather. He's the first cat herder in our family.
Herding cats. Don't let anybody tell you it's easy. Anybody can herd cattle. Holding together 10,000 half-wild short hairs, well, that's another thing altogether.
Being a cat herder is probably about the toughest thing I think I've ever done.
I got this one this morning.
Oh, that's just, man, I'm cracking up just over and over again. That is my favorite commercial. You know, sometimes you get scratched. Oh, God.
That was a good one.
Yeah, and there's another one here from Saab. I'm going to let people hear a little of this, and every one of them is so different. Check it out.
The turbocharged Saab. Enjoy the sun longer.
Man, there's some real class in that. I'm just smiling. You should see how far I'm smiling here. There's Target, there's Nike, there's Cinch. You know, the rodeo wear. I've got some Cinch jeans, as a matter of fact. Wrangler, Target, and so many more. What a life you've been having, and I'm really blown away with your orchestrations. You know, one of the things we haven't gotten to even talk about is the fact that you are a master orchestrator, and you're working with some terrific groups, including the Minnesota Symphony, the Minnesota Orchestra.
Yeah, I many years ago, a trumpet player approached me about working with him, named Charles Lazarus, trumpet player with the Minnesota Orchestra, and he had just moved to town, I think, recently at the time, and he had like his own kind of jazz thing going on the side. So I started working with him, and through him, I ended up doing his projects. But I also got the opportunity to start doing some arranging for the Minnesota Orchestra because we would play with them sometimes. And I was so lucky. I mean, I had done a lot of mock-up stuff and I've done a lot of string arranging for pop stuff, but I'd never really gotten to do full orchestra. But through him, I ended up getting these opportunities. And, most people, the first time they get to hear their orchestral works are with some, civic orchestra or some smaller little orchestra. I literally got to hone my arranging chops with one of the best orchestras in the world. And Osmo, when Osmo was still here, got to know him pretty well and work with him, and he really liked me. So it was a really, really good opportunity that I've run with. One of the other things I think I sent you was the years ago the Minnesota Vikings had they wanted the Minnesota Orchestra to do like the pregame. So if you've been to an NFL game lately, the pregame thing is a pretty big deal. It's like a 10-15 minute hype, get the crowd hyped up before they announce the players. So about 3-4 years ago, they did this one with the orchestra, and they needed a piece, and could only be 60 seconds long, I think. But they commissioned me to write the piece for the orchestra. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, and I love football. I love the Vikings since the 70s. So yeah. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be so great. So, the bigger thing was it was recorded. So it's not often you get an orchestra like that to record your stuff because that's crazy expensive. But this was, a joint thing. So I got to, I wrote the piece and we recorded it with the orchestra, and I worked with Osmo. But yeah, that was really cool. That ran for a couple of years and won awards as the best show open in the NFL. Oh man. Listen, you you keep falling uphill, man. It's just I love it. Then I did another one last year. They or I think it was 2 years. So they run them for 2 years. Mm-hmm. Then they asked me to do the next one, which I did. I think it's been a couple of years now. You probably I guess I'm not doing it this year because I haven't heard from them. Yeah, you said, no, I'm touring with Janet Jackson. Well, hey, I want to do a lightning round with you. And I want folks to know Tommy Barbarella is all over the internet. Can you give us, point us towards some good places to source your music? I think Spotify would be a good one. No, the Greasy Meal stuff is on Spotify. Sons of Almighty, another band I did with Michael Bland and Sonny. You've got a track on the things you sent me with Nick Jonas in the administration. Yeah, did that record with Nick, his first solo record. That was a trip. We cut the whole record in one day or 2 days.
Wow.
Down there at Blackbird.
Oh, yeah, right
Really
around
fun.
the corner from me here. Yeah.
Yeah, you know who played guitar on that record?
Bukovac?
And he's not on the album cover. Sonny's on the album cover because he did the tour, but it was actually David Ryan Harris. Played guitar on that record. He was wonderful.
Yeah.
Nashville guy.
I love Blackbird, and my buddy Mike Simmons is the audio rentals guy. He runs that department. So anything that an artist needs, any mics, any amps, anything like that, they've got it. Snare drums, they got like 150 snare drums. Okay, lightning round. You ready for this?
Okay.
All right.
I don't know what it is, but
I'm going to name an artist, and you give me a quick 30-second impression of your time if you ever cross paths. James Brown.
Yeah. Over in Italy, I didn't meet him over in Italy, but a friend of mine was dancing with him. And, the other closest I come to him was working with Sonny all these years, Sonny Thompson. Sonny played with James Brown, and he gives me all the stories. He briefly played with James Brown, ended up on one live record. He's on the song Too Funky. James Brown, the greatest. And when Prince went around, we were in the prayer circle, and Prince went around saying, everybody, what's your first concert? And all the brothers are like, oh, James Brown, Michael Jackson, Jackson 5. And it got to me, and I was like, shit. It was Hall and Oates. It was ELO. Hall and Oates opening for ELO.
Oh,
that was my first concert, and everybody laughed.
All right, the Jonas Brothers, Nick Jonas. Impressions, story.
When I met Nick, first time I met him was in the studio when we did the record, and I was just in awe of how I was so impressed by him. He was 15 at the time. Literally got word that he got his GED while we were in the studio for those 2 days. And then I eavesdropped on him FaceTiming with Miley Cyrus, who they were kind of lied him at the time, I guess. And she was in Europe, and I'm like, okay, this is crazy. That was like 2009. But I love Nick. Nick is just the coolest. And then when we played here in Minneapolis, like my little daughters were little at the time, and they got pictures with him, and it's funny seeing those pictures now.
Yeah, he was breaking into acting on Hawaii Five-0, and I had a song on that series the same season that he was one of the characters on there. Okay, Ziggy Marley.
Oh yeah, never met Ziggy, but played on Grammy-nominated song "Love Is My Religion." He's like, we're in Mixdown. I think this is going to be the single, but Ziggy says the chorus is missing something. Can you just drop a Rhodes part on the chorus? And I was like, I'm just heading out the door with my family to go bowling, but yeah, I can just do it real quick. And I literally just dropped in this Rhodes part, sent it over via iChat, probably an MP3, and he dropped it in, and that's how I ended up on the record. It's like 20 minutes.
All right. A guy that I've met, and I just admire the heck out of his songwriting, Dave Barnes.
Yeah, I know I played on some stuff. I don't remember much about it. Those were tracks John Field sent over to me, and I played on. And
cool guy, really good time.
I remember the songs were good. That's what all I remember.
Yeah, Nashville's got such craft in our writing. Okay, there's a small world story, I hope. I'm playing in a group called Garfunkel, Manilow, and Campbell with Tab Lavin and Eddie Kilgallen, and I do the Glenn Campbell because I was Glenn's band leader. And Art has had Tab Lavin on guitar for 25 years now, and Eddie Kilgallen knows Barry Manilow and writes with David Pomerantz, his co-writer, and has also written a big career song for George Strait. So I'm seeing Art Garfunkel on your list of people you've worked with.
Yeah, there's a guy named Ted Baker who played keys with Art. The early 2000s, probably mid-2. Buddy of mine, Michael Ballar, was playing piano with Art. Michael had subbed for me over in Italy on that gig once. So the second keyboard player on the gig was Ted Baker. He played like strings and bass because Art doesn't have a bass player because he's Art. He doesn't like having bass players, so the second keyboard player has to cover the bass line.
Uh-huh.
So I filled in a handful of shows with Art on second keyboard, playing bass with one hand and string parts and orchestral stuff with the other hand.
Oh, that's really cool.
Then Tab was playing. one of the shows was with the Nashville Symphony.
Yeah, Tab has been there
Couple of
25 years. He's got some great art stories. What an amazing artist to work with.
I will say though, I didn't get a rehearsal, and my buddy, I went over to I flew to New York. I went to his apartment to run over the material with him. The show was the next day, and I'm on my way there, and he's like, "Shit, Art got wind that you're coming over, and he wanted to come over too." I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna meet Art." So I get to his place. Art shows up, and first thing he does is pulls out this enormous joint.
Yeah, there goes rehearsal.
But then, a while later, I'm sitting there playing freaking Bridge Over Troubled Water in an apartment in the Upper East Side of New York with Art Garfunkel, the voice. And I'm like, this is crazy.
Oh, no kidding. You've walked in some rarefied air, my friend. Okay, I'll give you one more, but you get your choice of two. David Letterman or Jay Leno?
Oh, I was on Letterman twice. But yeah, I remember doing Letterman once with Nick Jonas. Yeah, it was cold, very cold in there. And I will just say he liked Prince. Well, I don't think he liked either one of those artists. He was just kind of weird. He certainly did not respect Nick Jonas by the way he interacted with him. That was my memory of it. But yeah. It was fun. It was fun being there with that house band and everything.
Wow. The closest I came to that was when I was with Kenny Chesney, and we got to be on Late Night with Conan O'Brien. And it was the NBC version of it back in the day. And that was a blast. And Conan was cool. And, the band was cool. And Conan had a guitar leaning up against the wall. He had a white SG Custom. And he would jam with the band during the breaks and, before and after the show. And I really enjoyed that. That was some pretty cool stuff. Well, Tommy,
who was that?
Oh, go ahead.
Who was that guy who had the later show?
With Craig Ferguson?
Yeah.
I love him. I watched so many of his interviews, especially the ones where he's flirting with women, and Jeff, his appliance, who's just a curious.
When the camera was not rolling, he was just so dirty and nasty and funny. It was, I did that show with Johnny Lang.
Oh, geez, listen to you. I think everybody out there listening should get to know Tommy, and then maybe you'll get a crack at one of those gigs just by knowing him. I'm so impressed with you. And I've always thought you were a great hang anyway. You're a super guy, and your talent is just amazing. And I'm so glad you shared that with us. I'm going to just take for a second here. I'm going to jump up to the high quality part of this song. This is To Be True, Sons of Almighty.
Keep your faith, it's your shelter. Comfort you in the storm of life. Shown up the raging, y'all. Going on, yeah we do. To be true. Going on, we do. Yeah we do. To be true. Oh, we know all this.
And it's been a delight talking to you, Tommy. And I again, thank you for doing this interview. And I wish you all the best, but you don't seem to need much luck. You've really got it. All comes to you, doesn't it? Just like the truck backs up, beep, beep. And here goes Tommy's latest gift from above, man. It just, what a career. And continue. I wish you continued blessings and go out and touch people with that music. I know you've got so many other things you're doing. You work in projects that involve kids, and you're a giver to the community, and everybody speaks like the world of you. There's so many. I mean, my friend Lisa Lund from the Minnetonka Schools just adores you, and there's, all ages love Tommy Barbarella. So all you got, if you would help me close the show. And it's not Marsha this time, but we thank Marsha for the intro. But actually, this is David Sandler kicking this off. David, who worked with Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys back in the late 60s, early 70s, and co-producer with him, another Minneapolis guy. So, Tommy, all you got to do is say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Hey, baby.
Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed this show. We invite you to check out all the other episodes and share this channel with all of your friends. Until next time, peace.